All right. This is Sally Jacobs, archivist for the McCormick International Harvester Collection at the Wisconsin Historical Society.
Hey, Sally.
Today is June 16th. I'm here at the Red Power Roundup at the Racine County Fairgrounds, and I am here with Eric Nottestad.
Not a stud.
Not a stud. Thank goodness he's here.
Like my wife says, not a stud. So.
Oh, yeah. You sprung that on me. That's hilarious. All right. So now, Eric, you have stopped in our story booth here. You have a story about your grandfather. Is that right?
Yes. I grew up on a 42 cow, 120 acre dairy farm between Westby and Cashton, Wisconsin, and my brother and my father are still on the farm. And there's a 1941 H Farmall that my grandfather had bought from Jules Rudai. He was the Farmall dealership in Westby, Wisconsin at the time. And a little interesting tidbit was that my grandfather, who's been dead now, been dead about 20 years. He died in 96. And he carried around the receipt for this in his wallet.
Really?
Up until about 4 or 5 years before he passed away. He had dementia. But Grandpa had this receipt in his wallet for about, I think it was $742, and it was the H cultivator, and I think I want to say a sickle mower, but it might have been just the H and the cultivator. And came on steel. It was pre-war, and it was one of the last ones that went out just before they shut down for the war effort.
Oh, right.
But he had the story that went along with it, that he had made the deal with Jules in Westby, and right next door to Jules' dealership was the bank. Yeah, he said, I went down to the bank, got the loan, went back, and paid Jules for the tractor, and we shook hands and wrote out the receipt. And then my grandpa used to tell the story that he said, yeah, I sat back, and he says, well, let's go have a malt.
I love it. So it was a handwritten receipt.
Yep, a handwritten receipt like on Jules Rudai Farmall, and Jules Rudai International. And as soon as he got that receipt, they went and Grandpa said, well, let's go have a malt. And Grandpa used to say, yeah, and I'll be goddamn if I had to pay for the malt too, he said.
That was a lot of money then.
So
not a small
he
amount.
bought. He was anticipating that Jules would buy the malts, but Grandpa had to pay for the malts too.
Both of them?
Yeah.
So I might be with your grandfather on that one.
So that was always kind of the family story that went down with that H, and we had all farm malls when we were growing up, and then that his brother, who was Elton, him and Grandpa Lloyd and Elton had a Model L case.
Oh.
And they scrapped that out, and they took the wheels off of that and put on the H.
Wow.
And that was, so then they converted it to rubber during the war.
Nice. Oh, yeah.
They had a steam engine that their father had bought brand new, and Grandpa used to tell a story about when they unloaded that on the rail up in Sparta.
Yeah.
They came across the bridge down in Leon or Melvina, and they started it, and everybody got off because they didn't think because they drove it all the way from Sparta up to, our farm the home farm was up by Nuri up there, so it's 20-some miles.
Yeah.
They let the engine go across the rail by itself, across the bridge, because they didn't know if the bridge would hold the steam engine. Yeah,
That's incredible.
And then who
was on the other side?
Well, them steam engines, they just go, maybe a mile an hour, so they just put it in gear and got off and let the thing go across the bridge, and then they just hop back on.
Ran to catch up with it, and then
there was no running them steam engines.
That was too slow.
Yeah. But they had and then during the war, they had an oil pull also.
Oh.
That oil pull had been sitting in the woods. They were behind the barn over to Alton's. And a scrap dealer came and wanted that. Well, the oil pulls had a huge big crankcase on them.
Oh, yeah.
And they were trying to break that cast iron crankcase apart.
Yeah.
For scrap for the war effort. And I remember Grandpa used to tell a story about that this guy, they rolled the thing over and they put dynamite, because everybody could buy dynamite back at that time for blowing stumps.
Oh, sure, right, stumps. That
But-
still seems a little alarming,
but they
yes.
put the dynamite. They stuck the dynamite underneath the crankcase and lit the fuse. And Grandpa said that thing went so high that we couldn't see it. And it came down in one chunk. It just went straight up and came straight down.
Oh, wow.
So that was the.
What did it hit on the way down?
Well, it just landed pretty much
Where it went up.
where it went up, but it embedded itself into the dirt pretty good.
Is it still there?
No, they
That would be too much.
they ended up just, I guess the story went that just before the end of the war, then there was another guy that came and they had some kind of big maul or something, and they
Kinda
were able to break it
cutter,
apart and cut
yeah.
it. Yeah, but I grew up with Farmalls. I got a 1961. My wife and I we got a 61 460 Farmall, completely restored. 24823 is the serial number.
Nice.
I think it's 824. So we farmed for 15 years. It was the first tractor I bought in '85. I was the second owner.
Wow.
Guys that had it were twins, and they retired, and I bought it in '85 at their auction and farmed with it and sold it at our sale when we quit back in '99.
Mm-hmm.
Able to buy it back. The guy that bought it, he called me here a few years ago and said he was going to sell it if I wanted it. We bought it, and now I've got more in that darn thing than what I'll ever. We don't want to talk about it.
It can kind of take over.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's, the more I talk to people about their IH tractors, talk to people about the other tractors, the more I'm learning how, what you just said about how the person who you sold your tractor to wasn't just going to sell it on the market. Yeah, it was time for him to sell it. But this, this idea that maybe it's true of other brands of tractors, but it seems unusual to me, and it's really quite wonderful that there is this maybe kinship is too strong of a word, but there's some sort of almost like a family.
It's kind of like the family brand, because my grandfather Lloyd, who had Farmalls, and his brother Elton, but Elton went to John Deere's.
Really?
So when I was growing up, it was always, that was Elton's brand of John Deere, and we always kidded each other, right across the line fence. We'd go help back and forth, and we had the 2 cylinders, but it was Elton and Uncle Elton had the John Deeres, Grandpa Lloyd had the Farmalls. We stuck with the Farmalls, and Elton's son Larry, and they stuck with the John Deeres, and now his nephew, he's got John Deere's. But yeah.
Did that make Thanksgiving awkward?
Another story I just thought of now was we bought when I was in 8th grade, my dad bought a Super MTA, and we had a 460 diesel for when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And we remember the night we drove it home. We bought it down Richmond Center, and I got to drive it halfway. My brother and I got to skip school that day. My brother was in 6th grade, and I was in 8th grade, and I drove it halfway, and then Todd drove it the other halfway. And that night, then after chores, we decided, we told Dad we wanted to pull that thing. So we hooked it up back to back to the back of the hooked the MTA and the 460 tail to tail outside the barn in the corn stubble field, and I had the 460, Todd had the MTA. We popped the clutch, and Todd let the clutch loose first, so it drugged the 460 right off, so we stopped. But then the second time, then both of us happened to let the clutches out at the same time.
Oh,
and the 460 started walking, just pulling that MTA away.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there was a big loud bang.
Uh-oh.
And the rear wheel casting on the MTA just busted.
Oh, man.
And the axle went right down to the bottom of the rim. And I was thinking at that time, the old man's gonna blow up. There's gonna be bloodshed. Blah blah blah.
This is not gonna be good. Maybe I should run away.
My brother and I remember he was sitting cockeyed on the back of the M, and I looked back at him and thought, "Oh crap!" Dad, he didn't say a word. He just says, he looked at both of us. Says, "Don't either one of you tell your mom what happened."
That's perfect. I love it.
So But that's
All right. Thanks
That's
for
it.
sharing. That was really
Yes.
great.